everybody. Բարև ձեզ սիրելի հայրենակիցներ. I'm Anna Nazloyan, iLur.am's special correspondent here at the United Nations, and I'm standing here in front of the Security Council, at the Security Council stakeout with my colleague Matthew Lee from Inner City Press, and we wanted to talk about a very important issue today. Whatever happened during the briefing with Mr. Herve Ladsous, Undersecretary General for Peacekeeping Operations here at UN. Hi Matthew, it's very nice to meet you today. Could you please tell us a little bit what's been going on with peacekeepers recently, especially connecting with some scandals in Libya and also Central African Republic, issues that you kept raising, especially, horrific transgressions in terms of human rights?
There's been, for about a month now, there have been questions raised about the alleged sexual abuse of children in Central African Republic, where the UN has a peacekeeping mission, by the French troops that the UN continues to work with there. And what's emerged is that as far back as August of last year, UN peacekeeping learned of these charges. And apparently they did nothing on it, except earlier this year in March it emerged, the head of UN peacekeeping, Herve Ladsous, is described in UN, essentially court documents, dispute tribunal documents, as having tried to get the person who leaked, who blew the whistle on the child rapes, fired. And ever since then, basically, they've been trying to make it go away. So today he held a press conference, but they found a way. I've asked the question about these very specifically. What did Mr. Ladsous know? When did he know it? For about 12 times in the briefing room. But today when he came, I wasn't allowed to ask him any questions. And the issue is not really about me, but the issue is it's very troubling to the UN, which people who these days don't follow it closely. It does some good work, but you have a situation here where the head of peacekeeping, who's French, and so basically has a conflict of interest in terms of covering up French troops' rape of African children, and the Secretary General that emerged today, some time ago in the spring, and no date is given, knew about these serious charges of sexual abuse of children, and did nothing, and told no one. The only thing that the UN has done since this came out is to fire the whistleblower. And now they say that they're doing an investigation of how the whistleblower leaked his documents. I asked at the end of the briefing, as he walked out, is Mr. Ladsous himself under investigation? There's no answer, nor would there, just to finish up, the previous spokesperson of Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General, Martin Nazirki, now at the UN in Europe, he at least would allow me to ask a question to Ladsous. Ladsous said on camera a number of times, I don't respond to you, mister, I won't answer you, mister. But at least the spokesman's office didn't become part of the cover-up. This was an extraordinary move.
Did you feel discriminated as a journalist, discriminated against?
Again, I want to say that the story is larger than me. The biggest problem here is that kids were raped and the UN covered it up, so it discredits the UN totally. But I will say it speaks very badly of an organization that pretends to talk about freedom of the press when they don't practice it even in the most basic way. Like literally, this is a harbinger of a kind of totalitarian governments, or that have pretend press conferences where again, I don't want to put anyone else down, but I want to say there is no way, objectively, I've asked the vast majority of the questions about this, and Stefan knows I'm not going to use it. I have a very specific question based on documents, so it's basically just an attempt to make it go away. And his excuse might be Mr. Ladsous told him, don't call on that guy, I won't answer it. But his predecessors at least stood up for his office and said, I'm going to call on him, if you want to not answer, do it. This guy is now basically as part of it, and again, I'm going to actually say this, it's impossible not to know that his predecessor was not French, and he is French. So we have a situation in which the Department of Peacekeeping Operations has been run by a French diplomat 4 times in a row. This is almost 20 years. And is it a coincidence that when they get evidence of French soldiers raping kids in Africa in a former French colony, they cover it up? The problem now is that Ban Ki-moon himself, now this is the question, what day did Ban Ki-moon know about these child rapes, and what did he do? Because...
Let's start from the center.
Absolutely.
When do you think UN actually knew officially that these horrific incidents happened in Central African Republic? And what do you think, which is the crucial one? Is it really important, the time frame, and also UN investigation time frames? Do you think these people knew it all along and tried to cover it up on purpose, or they really did not know the full picture?
No, I think that they did. I think that the allegations were so specific, including like names, incidents, physical description of the sex organs of the French soldiers, etc., that to not pass it on is a choice. And the problem that you have, and again, this is a fundamental problem, these peacekeeping missions in Mali, a former French colony, in Central African Republic, a former French colony, in Côte d'Ivoire, a former French colony, are dominated in this way. In fact, in both Central African Republic and in Cote d'Ivoire, there's a parallel French force that works alongside UN peacekeeping. Basically, UN peacekeeping is serving French foreign policy on the cheap with African soldiers. Today was the day of peacekeepers. They showed the number of peacekeepers killed in the last year. Many of them, Chad was the biggest number. Well, Chad gets deployed, as a former French colony, gets deployed to these places. They've publicly complained of being cannon fodder, being put on the front line in Mali with no support and shot up by extremists and blown up by mines.
It's really horrific.
And the president then visits Chad and says, oh, maybe we can sell you some jets. I mean, but that's fine. That's world politics. It's a tough game. But to have UN peacekeeping to be basically covering up child rape, the question now for me is, forget Mr. Ladsous. Mr. Ladsous, a permanent representative of an African troop contributing country, said to me last week he should resign, and I believe in that. Ban Ki-moon is the Secretary General of the United Nations. He goes all over the world talking about accountability, about peace and justice. There's a very simple question. When did he learn of these well-documented child rapes?
And what did he do?
And what did he do?
Exactly. Since we spoke about Haiti, what's your perception of that word Victoria UN peacekeepers bringing?
Because you have more videos.
So I thought it's easier to just I'll do editing. Go ahead. Yeah, he's a nice guy. He's a translator. He's not one of the good guys, believe it or not. I think he just didn't recognize what was happening.
So, could you please speak a little bit about the situation in Haiti? What happened there with UN peacekeepers, and what kind of actions or steps did UN take?
I think, there have been many sexual abuse allegations there, including by a Sri Lankan contingent that was simply sent home and never disciplined. I followed up that case and nothing. But the worst thing that the UN did, and again, not to be anti-UN, but it's very important that it live up to its ideals. And in the case of Haiti, it didn't. It came to the country, it brought in a contingent of peacekeepers from Nepal, a very well-meaning country now affected by an earthquake, but that had cholera. They came from a known cholera hotspot, and lo and behold, soon there was a cholera epidemic in Haiti that never had one before.
Which raises screening issues. Do you think UN peacekeepers are being properly screened or monitored?
They're not, and the reason the problem really though is that this is the thing to emphasize here. 9,000 people have died due to the UN's negligence, gross negligence, and the UN hasn't even apologized because they say they have immunity. They say that no matter what they do, they can't be sued.
Do you think UN should have immunity
I don't.
when it breaches its
I think
own standards?
the idea may make sense in the abstract, it may have made sense in the past, but it has been so abused under Ban Ki-moon. These are both instances. Ban Ki-moon ultimately is the one who made the decision to not only not provide any recompense. Here's the thing. It's not about paying out billions of dollars as some kind of a bonanza for victims. There are families there who lost their breadwinner, who now are homeless and begging in the street. And Mr. Ban Ki-moon, whose peacekeepers didn't give anything. His answer to this question is to say he's trying to, no compensation. He's trying to raise money for better water in Haiti in the future. But again, the essence of justice is that it's directed at the victims. These people lost everything. Their lives are changed irreparably by the UN, and no one wants to admit it. They go on promoting themselves. And so this is the difficulty. It's hard. There are things good that they do, but until they solve these problems, they will never improve. And it's hard. As it comes to the end of Ban Ki-moon's term, these are shameful things. And to flit around the world talking about climate change and peace and justice when he's basically giving it whatever the U.S. told him to do on Yemen, he did it. Now it's the Saudis are telling him what to do. It's really a sad day for the UN, and something must take place to improve it.
These are really painful precedents. And just one last general question. We, as journalists, we're not just bluntly criticizing. We really want UN to live up to its promises, isn't it so?
No, absolutely. I mean, the problem is you have things, and a lot of the staff here too. There are people that chose to come and work here because they really believe in its principles. Not all, but many of them. But at the top levels, these are basically just diplomats that wanted a job. There's an enormous difference in terms of idealism between the current USGs, Under-Secretary Generals of the United Nations, and your average UNICEF staffer. Just for example, those people, they came here, they could have made more. These guys some of them were kind of incompetent diplomats that got dropped here by their government as a way station just to hold a place to do their government's bidding. And it's shameful. This is a shameful development. And the reason is, if you want to know, is that the powerful countries can have a veto right over the Secretary General and own the USG posts. And they don't want the UN to be effective, essentially.
What you're implying, Matthew, is if we really want to see change in the world, it should come from within the UN.
Well, I think my hope now is that there are many people around the world who don't know this kind of thing or think that the UN is doing good, and that's great. They should learn more, and they should demand better. And my hope is that they're always talking about we the peoples, that in this, for example, in the choice of the next Secretary General, that people around the world, through social media and otherwise, have a stake at the table. Because if you let these guys choose, you get Ban Ki-moon. That's what was done before. In fact, the former U.S. ambassador has written, kind of bragged about it in a book, that they chose Ban Ki-moon because he wakes up in the morning and doesn't think he's God's gift to humanity. They did. Kofi Annan, whatever you can say about him, at least stood up to the U.S. in the invasion of Iraq. And so they didn't want that to happen again. And so if nothing changes, this will be the same process. And the fix is already in, but it still something can be done.
It's a cycle that keeps going. So let's hope we'll break it.
Let's hope that both technology and increased activism, sort of a global consciousness.
And also,
if it's not fixed,
raise of the awareness for these issues. People know more and then can do it.
Totally.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
To be continued.
Again, dear spectators, this was Matthew Lee from University Press, and we're here at the UN Security Council's takeover.
For now.